last but certainly not least, we have technical SEO expert Chris Herbrand. Chris, what's next for SEO in 2020?
I think there's going to be a lot of changes in 2020, mainly around SEO and just traditional practices that we are normally responsible for. I'll get into that a little bit later. But I just want to dive into more of the technical stuff. We've talked a lot about the content and not necessarily about some of the technical options and stuff that's going to be going on. The first thing I want to talk about is structured data markup. You can think of this as schema markup or just the library as schema.org. This particular topic is a subject that's near and dear to my heart. So it really pains me slightly to say what I'm about to say, and I'll get to that in a second. But 2019 has brought some new data types, including FAQs and how-tos. And when that happened, I personally got really excited about this. I couldn't wait to kind of add this into the client's arsenal where it was relevant, whether that was creating JSON, from the ground up for on-page deployment, or using kind of a GTM to inject it. And I know that's really not a recommended way of putting JSON in a website, but sometimes it's just easier. So in general, is structured data really going to be up to us to really manage as much as we are today? I don't think so. I think our involvement in the day-to-day of structured data creation is going to dwindle. I feel that Google has gotten smart enough and has evolved to a point where it can figure out exactly what kind of rich snippets to reward somebody based on the way it's crawled and parsed the content on the website. And we can see examples of this already. Example number one, breadcrumbs. We've seen now where Google is able to kind of piece together a breadcrumb navigation just solely focused and solely based on the fact of having a intuitively structured file repository of the website and file and folder structure. And you can see here with this wordstream.com, if you actually inspect the source code and run this through the structured data tool, you will not find any sort of structured data markup, but Google is still giving it and rewarding it with a breadcrumb navigation in the search listing. Kind of continuing on with examples, reviews are another place where we've seen this kind of, stuff that Google's been doing. It can now parse star rating and review counts better now without accurate markup. Again, if you check this particular page in URL, inspect the source code, you won't see any sort of review markup or rating markup. And yet Google is still rewarding this particular listing with a rating star and one review that has been published by an actual person, and Google is able to recognize that. The next kind of example is, again, centered on reviews. This is a site, Mozilla.org. They've created a page here where they've actually created a fake product, but they've used table elements and encoded characters to kind of mimic the microdata. So when Google actually crawls and parses the content, it pieces it together and knows exactly what it is, as opposed to directly implementing microdata, which is another form of implementation for structured markup. It's able to actually parse that out and reward this particular page with a rich result and a rating star and a review count. Talking more about kind of interactive media, video, we've seen this happen a lot as well, where listings have actually put in a video thumbnail inside the search listing, or search listing actually contain a video thumbnail rather. Now, this is primarily happening in the video Google index, not necessarily in the universal results. So, the basic tab of Google is just the universal results. So if you click into the video section, you will see a lot more listings like this. And that's primarily due to the fact that these typical listings have a higher click-through rate and drive a lot of more traffic. And so it's kind of relegated to that unless you're really searching using a exact match keyword or a search query that kind of contains the word video and the intent matches the fact that you really want to see a video. And you may see that in universal search results. And diving even more into video and kind of even more of a reason to kind of focus on this is that there's a lot of correlation between a higher average time on site as well as a higher organic position inside Google search results. So this would kind of, should put content marketers on a path where they are trying to produce video content if it's relevant to kind of drive that time on site higher, keep users engaged on the page, and therefore see the correlation effect and start to rank a little bit higher in organic search results as well. What should we do now moving forward, now that our role is becoming less and less involved in structured data? I would say that we are still responsible for kind of continue to review and audit the SERP listing features for your brand, making sure that your brand is showing exactly as you want it to, and the folder structure, in the breadcrumb example, the folder structure is correct and accurate. Addressing structured data errors and warnings as necessary. These are reported inside Google Search Console, as well as through the structured data testing tool that you can use. Really focus on only adding additional structured data markup if you feel it's really relevant and important to the content that you have on your site. And then just start thinking about how to make your content more robust with video and audio media types, and driving that user engagement on these landing pages, therefore, increasing organic ranking over time. So diving into the next topic I want to talk about is we are going to have to be more creative moving forward in 2020 when controlling how bots crawl the content. Now, this is specifically talking about the nofollow tag. The nofollow tag has in the past been traditionally used to kind of sculpt crawls and control how kind of search bots are going through the website and what content they happen to be seeing. And we won't be able to rely on that any further. And that's because in 2019, Google has introduced 2 new nofollow related attributes. One is sponsored, one is UGC, relatively self-explanatory. Obviously, sponsored is for paid or sponsored links. UGC is meant to be used on links that are included in user-generated content on websites. Now, these can be used interchangeably. You can add UGC and sponsored and nofollow all to the same tag if it's relevant and makes sense. But the key takeaway here is that as of March 1st, 2020, Google is no longer going to be allowing the use of nofollow to kind of create or sculpt rather a crawl path for search bots. You'll have to find more creative ways as SEOs to be able to kind of impact that, whether that's obscuring links and making sure they're not crawlable, or various other methods in order to be able to kind of control that crawl. And this is really going to be more kind of impactful for larger sites like the eBays, the Amazons, where Google's not going to be crawling all of your pages anyway. They'll be crawling a subset of your pages. So how do you make sure that Google is crawling and search bots are crawling the pages you want them to crawl and the content that you want them to see? So this is just a recap. It's pretty much everything I've just talked about, so I don't think I need to go through this exactly one for one. But as long as your publishers are using nofollow as it's intended, there shouldn't be much impact from this at all going forward. If you're finding yourself in a position where you've used nofollow a lot on the site to control how bots are kind of accessing the content and how they're crawling it, then that's going to be it's going to be time for you to now update and find out more creative ways in order to be able to kind of control that moving forward. And the last thing I want to talk about, and this is just the overall, this is what I mentioned earlier, and its automation will change the role of the SEO specialist. Machine learning is growing, evolving, becoming more popular. Machine deployment, same thing as well is happening with that. And you can see some SEO practices just naturally will fall away because of this. Unimportant things like linking, tagging, and page speed, right now they're easy to be deployed through the machine, through CMSs, through plugins, and that can be kind of seen here with WordPress being used rather for almost 50% of websites, along with other CMS solutions. And they all provide a plethora of plugins that can be downloaded and used that automatically crunch images, so you don't have to spend the time doing it on your own. And automatically provide internal links to relevant pages by scraping the content that's on the sites, stuff like that. Now, I'm not saying that SEOs are going to, tech SEO or SEOs in general aren't going to be as important. Our role is just kind of transitioning to more of almost like a shepherding. So we're going to still manage the day-to-day, look and make sure things are happening in the right way, tweak things if necessary. It's just in the deep, hands-on, it's going to be a little bit lighter for us. And so I think a lot of the costs that would normally have been associated with some of the technical SEO side of it can be kind of diverted to more of the creative web disciplines, and therefore kind of paving the way for SEOs to kind of dive deeper into other areas and develop other skill sets to both support their creative colleagues on the content side, or dive deeper into the technical side and start diving into machine learning and, you know, creating your own machine learning algorithms and figuring out how to deploy those to, you know, create meta tags, description tags for, especially for larger sites that you have a ton of products or a ton of pages that won't rank anyway. You just want to have some unique titles and meta tags. It's going to be kind of the perfect spot to do that. And I think that's it for me. Again, any questions about the technical side, go ahead and go to Twitter, use the hashtag TSA Talk.
Thanks so much, Chris. That was great. All right, everyone. So it's time for our live Q&A with our speakers. So if you have any burning SEO questions for Amanda, Fiona, or Chris, just tweet us with your question and the TSA Talk hashtag, and we'll get through as many of your questions as we can. And if we don't get to your question, we'll follow up with you directly after the webinar. So this first question is actually for you, Chris. So Chris, one of your predictions for 2020 was the rise of SEO automation and this, you know, changing role of SEOs. So why should we still consider SEO if processes are going to become automated?
Well, I think SEO still has a place, and technical specifically still has a place in the ecosphere. We can't leave things unchecked. As technical SEOs, we need to make sure that everything is being done in the way that we'd like to see it done if we were doing it, and it was still our responsibility. So I kind of mentioned this before, but I think our role is evolving into more of kind of like a shepherd. So we're going to kind of, you know, make sure everything's going in the right way. We'll jump in when we need to. There's still some primary tasks that we are going to be responsible for, like creating clean crawl paths, you know, making sure that pages are serving the right header status and they're not erroring out and they're valid, and we're not no indexing pages we shouldn't be no indexing. So stuff like that is still going to be on our plate to deal with as technical SEOs. But I feel like our hands-on with page speed and some of the other tasks that could be easier, you know, either machine deployed or can be set to like a machine learning algorithm to create a, you know, a image alt tag, or, you know, based on, you know, the algorithm that we fed it and the data that we fed it. I think, you know, that's going to kind of be where we're at moving forward in 2020 and beyond.
Definitely, that makes sense to me, and that's something that, you know, is kind of a trend right now, or a prediction, you know, not really for SEO, but across, you know, digital media as a whole. And I think it's not so much, you know, machine learning or AI replacing the specialist as it is, you know, what SEOs and what digital marketers can do with you know, the power of AI and machine learning to kind of support our day-to-day. So, you know, maybe handling all of the more mundane, time-consuming stuff, so we can focus on strategy and the bigger stuff.
And that's exactly it.
Cool, sounds good. And this